Hello Darktiders, today's going to be a bit of a long one. I'm going to give you a comprehensive guide to what I believe is the most optimal setup for Gun Psyker. We're going to do a dive on the weapons themselves, as much information as I can provide you, although these weapons kind of speak for themselves. We're going to touch a little bit on Curios, what you should use for your perks. We're going to go over what I believe is the most optimal build for Gun Psyker in the current meta, both for slight ease of use and pure optimization. We're going to talk about a more casual friendly way of building the exact same build with some very minor changes. We're going to look at another build that a few people have sent to me that I feel is very suboptimal, is touted as more casual centric and ease of use, but I feel as though kind of misses the point of what Gun Psyker is meant to do, and actually just complicates things further. If you are one of the people who added me on Discord and when I asked you, hey, do you play Gun Psyker? What do you like to do? I'm not dogging on you, I promise. I just think there's a lack of information on how Gun Psyker works at not a overly optimized level, and I'd like to talk about it. A couple things I want to do before we get into that. I'm going to do a brief intro talking about the intention of the channel and give a little thank you. I'm going to also give a disclaimer because I think it's my moral obligation for who should use this build, when they should use this build, and why they should use this build. If you are an advanced player and you have no interest in either of those topics and you already understand the weaknesses of Gun Psyker and why this is a suboptimal build to play with low skill, skip it. I'm going to have bookmarks. You don't have to listen to me. It probably will take a few minutes, admittedly, but I will try my best to keep it as curt as possible. So for those of you who are listening, thank you. I really appreciate you watching my content. I was absolutely blown away from the traction of my very first video. I uploaded that with no intention of receiving engagement. I thought I'd get maybe 100 views, 150 views. I would get a couple people subscribing. We reached, 6.5 thousand views in about a week, 300 subscribers. Very clearly, there is a untapped market of people who care deeply about Darktide content creation and don't feel as though they have other resources that are meaningful or digestible or comprehensive. That's what this channel is going to be. There's going to be a lot of long form content like this. It might not be, the easiest to digest always compared to simple build and gameplay videos, but I promise you, you will learn more about the subclasses and builds that I am talking about. You will know their use case, and you will come out of it with more information than you went in with it, even if you're, an advanced player, unless you really know everything about this game, in which case, why are you watching my videos? I also am going to make a concerted effort to include animation cancels in tech in my videos. I think that there is a severe lack of this information being recorded anywhere. Vermintide 2 has tons of movement guides, spreadsheets, videos, things on animation cancels, just because that environment is better suited for competitive play and because of modded server, that type of player base has thrived there. This is sorely missed for Darktide. There is a lot of very relevant animation cancels that become apparent or visible patch by patch, some that have been in the game since its inception and almost no one talks about. Great example, Ogren Rock cancel. There's one video on YouTube I've been able to find that talks about it. It has some use cases. I will make a video on it. My point being, that's going to be also a focus of this channel. Disclaimer. This build is incredibly high skill ceiling. It also has an incredible high skill floor. If you are not a above average player and you play this build as I have it designed here, you will not only get poor results, but you will also be an active detriment to yourself and a detriment to the players in your team. The other part of it as well, you will soak resources, which is just not good, especially if you're being inefficient. The other side of that is if you are a extremely above average player and you do make good use of this build, you will make a incredibly unfun environment for everyone around you. You have to let people know what they're getting in for if you're going to play with them, I feel like. I am showing this to you not to show off my skill, because a lot of these are actually pretty suboptimal games, but I play this build a lot. I have a lot of hours in this build. You will see almost immediately looking at these, you will always outperform everyone in damage dealt. If you have skilled play, you will take almost no damage taken, despite the fact you have very little keeping you actually, safe. You will almost always have melee and ranged elite kills that are double what your entire team has cumulatively. I'm not going to go through a ton of these. I'm just going to flit through them briefly. You can see that this is accurate in a majority of games I play. That's a veteran game, my apologies. But again, you can pretty quickly see what I'm talking about if you just look at yellow numbers. A lot of these as well, I could have optimized and done far more damage and done far more elite killing than I actually do in them. But for a majority of them, I kind of held back because I wanted to test actual use case in pubs with this build, and I just didn't want to ruin everyone's game entirely by, running all the way to the front of the pack and killing everything nonstop, taking every resource, etc., which you can do very reliably with this build. When should you use this build? I think this build is an excellent duo build. I think because you know, both of you, what you're getting into, and you can pre-plan quite easily for covering Gun Psyker's weaknesses. You know, if you play a duo Auric with, let's say, a Bullgrin that has low ammo usage and focuses primarily on horde, clear, and utility, that's great. You can play it with just the standard voice of command veteran with survivalist. I think that's very good. Cracks and voice just give you way more defense and utility, displacement, and obviously, you know, they're not going to be using a whole bunch of ammo if they're using plasma gun, and even clubness on a veteran with survivalist is not that bad. Alternatively as well, this is really, really good with another psyker who uses staves and not a weapon, a secondary weapon. I think any of those are good. You can play it in pubs if you make some small adjustments. If you know no one on your team is going to use ammo, I think this is completely fine. Take all the ammo packs. I've played plenty of Auric maelstroms where I go through the entire maelstrom, and even people who are using ammo, if I'm not being super greedy, we get through it with no one on red, except maybe myself. Really easy thing to do to stop that is to switch the recon las gun, which we're going to get into a little bit later when I talk about the more casual version of this build. I also think, you know, if you get into a game, be prepared. You know, if you see other people who have ammo inefficient builds, you can politely mention, this is what I want to do. Are you guys cool with that? People might switch it around. If not, be prepared to play something that's super ammo efficient. Have a staff that you like ready to go. If you don't like to do that, or you don't like staves, maybe just play a different class, play veteran. But you know, that's something to think about. So all that being said, let's get into the actual video. So Macabre and Dueling Sword, I don't think I need to talk about too much. That video that I had as my first video talking about Dueling Sword Zealot is accurate as well for Gun Psyker mostly. Any sort of finesse or crit damage based build that utilizes this sword, that video will be an accurate resource for. I don't think there's really too much to talk about. The only major difference being, I think that, you know, maybe taking Shred instead of precog is reasonable just because of how dominant this weapon is with critical strike. And how, you know, crazy it gets out of control, and you don't have as much critical strike in just your base build comparative to, you know, Zealots. So I think that could be reasonable, but I do think that precog is still better. Primarily you're using this to kill certain priority targets like crushers or bosses themselves, and precog is going to be better suited for those cases. Pretty much everything else you're using this gun for, so for that reason I don't think it's valuable. Infantry auto gun. Everything should be 80 except mobility. Why do we take everything 80 except for mobility? Damage is important, stopping power is important, ammo is important, stability is less important. Some people do 70-70 with stability. I think stability is better than mobility because you don't get an actual increased dodge from having higher mobility. 4 is the highest that you can get on this build. I'm going to try to talk a little bit slower, by the way. People are complaining about my speed of speech, but I'll try my best. You don't get another dodge out of this. For that reason, I think that this is better. Perks, we're going to go with flat crit chance. Crit chance is obvious. This weapon scales incredibly well with crit chance just because of how crits are calculated off of it. That was its primary nerf on that last patch where I think they reduced it by like 1 bullet getting a crit for every crit. I can't remember the exact value. I think it was like 6 to 5 or 5 to 4, something like that. Point is that this scales very, very well with crit. You're critting all the time. There's no reason not to take this. And there's no other meaningful perks other than flak that really give you better time to kills. Flak is good on this weapon just because flak affects the most amount of targets and it helps with elites. Not much else to say about it. If you want me to actually prove to you that like things like carapace aren't worthwhile, I will. I think that's best just represented by me doing this. Here, let me grab this. You don't have health bars because they haven't respawned yet, but that's not very meaningful damage. It takes a while. I think almost always, instead of doing this, having Scryer's Gaze up and just like doing this is easier. With precog, that'll be a 3-shot a majority of the time. Sometimes you can even get a 2-shot with certain buffs. Pretty reliable. Putting carapace on this doesn't really increase the speed at which you kill carapace enemies. It's actually a detriment as well for maulers, which we're about to get into. But let's say I take carapace, I pop This just isn't very effective. I don't think you should do it. Even with buffs, it's not very effective. With red stim, obviously you shoot into everything. It becomes very easy to kill crusher packs with the red stims. Otherwise, I think it's better to use your melee. The reason why I say actively taking flak, or rather carapace over flak, damages your use case in this weapon is because if you take carapace, you don't get increased mauler damage. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. So this is something that I never see Gun Psykers talking about, which actually is more useful than you might think. Shooting at Mauler's heads, because it is carapace, takes much longer than shooting them in the body. So when you are faced with a Mauler pack, it might seem counterintuitive, but you should shoot them in the body. It's like a huge difference in TTKs. It's a massive difference in TTKs. So specifically for Maulers, always ensure that you're shooting them in the body instead of the head, and they're actually pretty reliable to kill even without Scryer's Gaze up. If you don't know why Scryer's Gaze is so good, I'll just show you really quick. It's absolutely disgustingly broken. It does a ton of damage. It synchronizes, or synergizes, excuse me, very well with your other talents that are based around crit and movement speed. It's just really broken in skilled hands. It's really bad in non-skilled hands because you end up using too many resources to make it useful. But overall, it's really, really strong. So that kind of caps off this weapon. I will talk briefly about Recon Lasgun. I will say out the gate, if you want to play this build and just be, you know, more effective, this gun is going to make it so that as a casual player, you are more effective. You don't have to aim with it as reliably. Its damage output differential is somewhat negligible. You don't have to reload it as often, so it's less likely that you're going to get in a situation where you lose empathic evasion. It's easier to keep Scryer's Gaze up with it without hitting weak points. Overall, it is a good alternative and is borderline same quality. Columnus is still a little bit better, primarily if you're utilizing all your resources effectively. But this is totally fine. I think if you're going to be a casual and you really want to play Gun Psyker, use this exact build plus this weapon. It will serve you very well. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But do keep in mind, if you want to play this at the highest level and be super dominant, I think it is less good. Unyielding crit strike chance with Infernus is going to be the premier if you're a casual player for this build. The reason why is because it just makes it a good boss killer and good at killing unyielding enemies because of burn stacks. I think that overall, I think this is a little bit of a meme. I think if you want to use this weapon to its full potential, there are other blessings that you could take in lieu of Infernus. But again, we're talking explicitly about ease of use and casual play. And for that reason, I think this setup for this gun is going to be, you know, your best bet. We'll talk about Curios. So there's a lot of Psykers who go health to toughness. I don't think this is a good idea. Out the gate, if you understand how Psyker works, the stamina pool is small. Having +3 stamina is very impactful for Psyker and very good to do. It just further enables as well your mobility that you already have with this build. I don't see an argument to take health, especially since the nerfs to flames. I think it is illogical. I don't think that even in casual play it is worth doing over stamina. And it certainly is not worth doing in this build. 2 toughness is better than 1 toughness, 1 health for similar reasons. If you want to make the argument that I want more health because I won't get one shot by snipers as reliably, I think it's much more reasonable if the problem for you is getting hit by snipers, just to replace one of these perks, primarily this one here I have with +5% toughness, with sniper resistance. It'll mean that you won't get one shot at a majority of the time, and you certainly won't if you ever have gold toughness. On all of these, you're going to want to watch utilize combat ability regeneration and stamina regeneration. Both of these are just super valuable. Similar reasons from my last video. If you don't understand why these are impactful, combat ability regen lets you just press button more, and it synergizes with your other talents that affect combat ability regeneration. Stamina regeneration is, in my opinion, and many people's opinions, the best perk in the game. It allows you to clutch. Stamina is how you do crazy things in this game and are uber effective. It's really good, and you should take it on all your characters, basically. Sprint efficiency and block efficiency for that 3rd slot for 2 of these. You could take this and add a 2nd block efficiency to synergize better with kinetic deflection. Personally, I don't think that it's necessary. I don't find that I'm blocking that often with this build particularly, so I just take the extra flat 5% toughness. There's a variety of things that you could take in lieu of that. I realized I didn't mention this too. A lot of people say to take Maniac on this. Don't do that. It only affects 2 targets. If you find as though that you need it because you are like a lower skill player, you don't want to deal with mutants, and you find Rager packs like scary, replace the range critical strike chance. Just know that you're losing out on a pretty decent amount of damage on all other enemy units just to deal with 2 other enemies a little bit easier, and I don't think that that is worth your time. I'm not going to go over every single talent. Some of these should be obvious. I will touch on some things that some people do. Warp expenditure is not worth taking. It does not replenish enough toughness to warrant a node. I see some people for some weird reason taking this with these types of builds, presumably because they're going to pair it with a sail. This is just not worth taking. You're not doing warp attack kills with this build. Perfect timing as well. A lot of people take for whatever reason because they think that it's going to be useful. Warp damage does not affect this build. Battle Meditation and Purloin Providence is a stickler for certain high-end psychers. You know that meme where it's like, you're a low skill player, so you have one opinion, you become a medium skill player, so you have one opinion, and then you become a high skill player and you go back to your like stupid opinion. I think that there's lots of things in this game that are like that, and with optimal play, just not thinking is better sometimes. The reason why I say that is because a lot of psychers believe that Battle Meditation and Purloin Providence are actively damaging their Gun Psyker builds because they want to keep their Scryer's Gaze stacks for specific times. So they will go out of their way to quell peril during those downtimes with their Blitz. I do not think this is worthwhile. I think that taking these is going to be better than making any meaningful use of your blitzes. I don't think that a majority, so I'll say this, in like 50 games I've probably used Smite in a meaningful way maybe twice. The only time you should use Smite is in extreme use cases where you're going to get a lot of value, you're going to CC a lot of things. It's a panic button. There's no other options. If you wanted to tell me you didn't want to take Smite and wanted to take Brain Rupture, by the way, that's totally fine. Really the only use case you're going to get out of this is snipers and certain bombers who are out of range of Clemnus to kill them in an effective manner while you're dealing with Horde and you want to slide dash and Brain Rupture as you're doing so. I think that's totally viable. I value this just a little bit more because most of the people who I play with in duos are going to use some sort of long range weapon or something to deal with long range enemies, but Smite is going to be your premier blessing or your premier blitz. Assail is actually better than I think the average player base thinks for specifically casual players. If you are not good at aiming when there are spread out enemies, this is a very effective way of dealing with them quickly, especially if you animation cancel. Although I've noticed recently that the animation cancel is less reliable. I don't know if that has to do with servers or what, but for whatever reason, it's not working as well for me. Anyhow, I just don't see a reason to use this. I know that a lot of people, and we'll talk about it later with this build particularly, say you use this in lieu of using as much ammo and it helps with, ammo consumption. But I think it's just better to, out the gate plan who you're playing with and think about that a little bit more. Psychonetic Aura, I cannot overstate the value of this. I know this is a big meme for certain people because it's like, oh, Psychonetic Aura is so good. It really is that good. I think that it is so good, it makes taking a sail so much worse. Not getting this means a lot for your team, especially in duos where ability cooldown usage is much more important and timed ability cooldown usage is much more important for players other than this specific build. I think you should just press your F key whenever there are things in front of you. If there's nothing in front of you, you don't press it, but otherwise you should press it. It's really, really good. You get way more uses out of your ability cooldowns. It synergizes with your Curios. Everyone should run this at all times. Seer's Presence similarly is going to be the same thing. You don't need kinetic presence, it's completely overkill. This would be reasonable if it was placed here, but it's not. It's placed all the way over here, so it's not really reasonable. And I definitely don't think it's better than this. One with the warp just gives you toughness damage reduction based on your current peril. You should always be high peril with this build, so it's worth doing. Empathic Evasion is sort of your bread and butter talent node. This is how you're going to be able to play super aggressive, and is a big reason why Psyker is very fun. You can intentionally miss position with skilled play and get way more value out of your weapons by using this talent. You're able to sprint into engagements so long as there's nothing within melee, and even if there is things in melee, I will still just keep my gun out and shoot at prio targets with dodging. It just makes you invulnerable to damage unless you get trappered or you mess something else up or there's a flamer, whatever it might be. It's incredibly strong, and it is the reason why Gun Psyker, in my opinion, is as good as it is in combination with Scryer's Gaze and Metal. Honestly, this is really good too. I didn't talk about this earlier, but the movement speed and toughness is a big reason why, because we're always critting. It's good. Scryer's Gaze as an ability is probably the best, if not one of the best. It's like in the top 3, right? Like your top 3 are going to be Shroud, Field, Voice, and Scryers. Scryers and skilled play is going to pretty much be the most value you can get for an ability ever. It gives you damage, critical chance, suppression, increased finesse damage, toughness damage reduction, movement speed. It's incredibly easy to keep up if you are good with your aim, at least. I really, really like it. I really think that you should give it a shot. If you were a lower skilled player, I don't think it's worth playing this build with Telekine Shield. I know that there's a couple people who go, oh, you're going to take Telekine Shield and you're going to put it down and then you're going to shoot at things with a Recon las gun. Sure, that's somewhat good, but I feel like you should just play a different class at that point. Like I said, like Veteran. Realistically, Telekine Shield only becomes valuable if you are a player who struggles with map knowledge, you know, when you should go into cover. You can't focus on your reload, so you drop empathic evasion. This really is just not worth doing. This obviously far outweighs it with skilled play. We don't take Warp Unbound because there's no way for us to overcap unless for some weird reason you're at 100 and you pull out Smite. You shouldn't do that though. That's a big mistake, and we're not running a sale, so there's really no risk of that happening either. So for that reason, this is what we do. Warp speed, you know, gives more movement speed, works with our other movement speed. This gives finesse, this gives toughness DR, like I mentioned. We go down here. Warp Rider is something that certain Gun Psykers don't take. This is integral to this build. The flat damage increase with your peril is really, really important. You also get a 10% health node by going this way, which I think is great. And is, you know, preferable to a couple of the builds, one that I'm going to be talking about later that doesn't go this way and takes a 20% Curio. This is just really good. Please do this. Kinetic Deflection is also a bread and butter talent for pretty much every Psyker build. It allows you to make use of your peril as an alternative for blocking instead of stamina. Because of your low stamina pool, this is incredibly effective. It is also incredibly efficient. You can get in situations where like you just infinitely block, and then every once in a while you're not getting attacked, you switch to whatever your blitz is, quell, and then go back to blocking almost immediately. Primarily with Demon Hosts, it makes Demon Host engagements just laughable. They just do nothing to you. They can't do anything to you. It's an incredibly good talent. You should make the most use of it. That's why we take block efficiency. Some people take 2 to enable this talent to be better. Tranquility through Slaughter, I believe, is a new talent. I don't remember it being here, but it could have been here before. I could just be losing it. It's really, really good. Just reduces your peril on non-warp range critical hits, which isn't that often, but it does happen most certainly, especially with how much the Columnus shoots. It also scales particularly well with Recon las gun, so very good talent. True Aim gives us more crits. Surety of Arms is one that some people take, some people don't. I actually really like it. I'll show you what this looks like. So this is without it, the Columnus reload speed. Not that long, not that rough. With it on though, the 25% doesn't seem like a lot. In reality, it's actually pretty significant. The reason why it's so significant is because if you do have empathic evasion dropping and you are not in range of cover and you miss position, this makes it so that you won't get punished as often for your mistakes, because your time to get crits back out will be reduced and get empathic evasion back up. It makes it actually much easier to play the build. Another thing that a lot of people ignore and they say, oh, it's a negative because you get peril. If you're using this build correctly, you have no other sources of peril. So if anything, this is a double positive because you reload, you gain peril back, thus maintaining your peril to enable different talents like Warp Rider, things that give you, you know, toughness on peril, and it keeps you at that peril value for longer periods, especially because a majority of the time, or many times, you will be in a situation where you just finish Scryer's Gaze and then you're reloading after your dump, and this just extends that. Disrupt Destiny, I'm not going to get too into. It's really, really good. It's probably one of the best keystones in the game. It gives you toughness on marks, movement speed, adds precision bonus, meaning you get damage, critical damage, weak spot damage, precision bonus stack. It's just really good. You just kill things, you keep it up. Very, very solid. Towards the bottom of this tree is where some argument will be had between really high level psychers. Some of them will take none of this and only take this. I think that's viable if you use the points in meaningful ways elsewhere, which I'm going to talk about briefly. Personally, for me, I think doing this is going to be best. For the reasons I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's valuable to quell peril to hang on to Scryer's Gaze. I think you can press the button so often, especially if you have someone else on your team who has cooldown reduction within their kit and provides it to you. I don't know. I think getting peril quelled and staying in Scryer's Gaze through this is really good. Furthermore, you know, unless you're a really good player, I think I'm definitely an above average player. Like, you can tell by my games and everything, and I will upload gameplay eventually. My CPU hasn't been working, which is why I haven't been uploading, by the way. even in that, because of the way that most maps work and most missions work, I think in most difficulties and content, this is going to be best for you. I think most players will not be able to make use of perfectionism in a meaningful way, and Cruel Fortune is just assurance either way. I think this is even more reasonable because you don't really need with this to get the 2 additional stacks of Disrupt Destiny from weak spot kills, but I think it's worth doing if you want like optimal or minimum optimization loss and a little or a lot more ease of use. I will say though that obviously if you are a very skilled player, you're going to do this or even just this. This is going to just net more DPS, obviously, because you have more stacks. However, because of the way that events work and the fact that most people aren't always doing like 3 Vegs, most people will see more use out of this. If I am playing duos, I always do this. And I think this build is phenomenal for duos, so I encourage you to do this if that's the environment that you're in. But most people are going to find use in this. Let's say we don't want to take this. We want to take this. You have 2 points. Let's say you don't even value this. We could take 3 points. Where can you put these points that will be meaningful to you? I think that anticipation is not a meme. Yes, it is 2 points to get here. You do get 5% range damage though, which is something. And anticipation is better than most people think, I think, because they just don't understand how dodges work or they don't value dodges as much as they should. Especially if they're a lower skill player, I think this is very helpful. Getting active dodge and duration increase just means that you get a little bit more iframes. It doesn't actually increase the distance of dodge. That's a misconception. I won't do the testing. You can test it for yourself because I think it'll just add too much to the video, like time-wise. But it doesn't. It just gives you a little bit more iframes. Primarily, the reason why I think it's useful in this build is because we're capped out at a certain amount of dodges already. The +1 dodge actually becomes very useful. I know a lot of players won't value this, and it might be only high-level players that do, who utilize their mobility fully. But with Columnus, with max dodges, +1, you actually get 1 additional slide dash before going into negative dashes, because when you slide dash at 0, or slide out of a dash rather, you don't go into negative dash. So you get 1 extra slide dash without going to -1, which I think is really, really good because it gives you full effectiveness from 1 whole slide dash over just playing without anticipation. Do I think it's worth taking this over other things? Not necessarily, but you know, if you struggle with dodging, maybe, could be. Where else could you put the points? This could be reasonable, I think. 10% melee attack speed is not bad. 5% toughness damage reduction is not bad. I don't think any of these are worth putting points into. I think, like, you know, optimally you're playing how I described before, or you like do like this. And I think either one of those is fine. I don't think there's anything else though that you should really consider doing. So that's going to be what I think is the most optimal build. I'll have a copy of it in the description, and I think it's very, very good. I think that, you know, just switching to Recon Lasgun will already extend your effectiveness with this build significantly, and I think that that's something that you should think about doing if you are not like a super optimal mega gamer. I can say, you know, if you want to try this out in 1 game, join a pub with it. You'll see very quickly what the problem is. No more, you know, damning evidence than just trying it yourself. Now we're going to talk about another build. So if you sent me this, I'm not dogging on you, I promise. Like I said, I reached out to a whole bunch of people through Discord, or rather they reached out to me and added me for my video. I shouldn't say I reached out to them. I reached out to them following this because I wanted to talk to a little bit more of the casual player base who I didn't know, and just see what, you know, their thoughts are on Gun Psyker and what they do and what they find effective. A lot of people referenced this video and this build in particular, so I felt it useful to talk about because I think it's very unoptimal. This is a little bit different. I didn't set it up properly wholeheartedly. So, you know, Combat Blade is an alternative to the Macabrian Dueling Sword. I think that Combat Blade's use case on Psyker is significantly worse than Zealot and Veteran, because the whole reason why you're using Combat Blade a majority of the time is for its added mobility. Because of you know, the lower stamina pool with Psyker, I think you get less value out of heavy runs or held runs, you know, if you're gonna do that. And this is just going to output way less damage than this. You can put Carapace on this and make it a little bit more effective, but for me personally, like, you'll see what I mean. This is the tech that most Psykers are going to be doing. They're going to be doing push attacks because of its stamina regeneration speed. That's like a fine TTK and everything. I think it's pretty good. If this is really how you like to play and you like the mobility or whatever, sure, I think it's fine. I don't think it's like a total loss. I think in every way, shape, or form, though, Macabians just do better. It rounds off the build better because it is better at killing Carapace with like little effort. I didn't have Scry's Gaze there, so that's not a good representation. Let me get that back up. It's just really good. You're gonna one-shot. Okay, I'm really struggling today. I apologize. I tried recording this a few times. I'm sorry. So most of the time, this is going to result in you killing a Crusher in like 3 attacks. With certain buffs and precog up, it will even sometimes be 2. The TTK is always going to be better than Combat Blade. I actually think also the mobility with this weapon is better for skilled Psykers than Combat Blade. Slide dashing, because of your stamina regen speed, will always result in you not using stamina, but maintaining run speeds. So you'll be able to keep up sprint speed by using the momentum of your heavy attacks in lieu of slides. And, you know, in addition to that, you're also getting slides, so you're getting iframes during this. I think this is in every case better. The other thing that I think is better about it is in my testing and experience, you know, high-level Gun Psykers are going to use momentum from this weapon off of certain geometry in order to get, you know, what is effectively a trimp. If you don't know what a trimp is, essentially, it is using geometry and momentum in order to, like, gain added momentum and movements. So, like, a good use case for this is certain maps have like those really long tunnels where the sides go up on them. What you can do is you can do like this with momentum bonus, and if you have like all of your speed and everything up, which I can kind of get, you will get like crazy value out of this, and you will go super far. Let's say a Beast of Nurgle's coming down that tunnel, you can trimp off of the side of that tunnel and kind of go around him. You can like wall ride. It's really cool. You can use it for increasing movement off of like edges and stuff. I just think this is a better weapon in every way than Combat Blade for this specific build. I think that Combat Blade is a better weapon overall than Macabre Dueling Sword, but you know, what you prefer is a toss-up. And I also think this is just easier to use. I think most people should use this, and if the whole goal of a build is ease of use, you should not be suggesting this. You should be suggesting this in all case scenarios. I've already talked about Recon Lasgun. I don't remember what exactly he has on his Curios. I know that he uses health to toughness. I've already touched on why I think this is suboptimal, so I'm not going to stress on this. Use these perks as they are. This is the build overall. So it makes use of Assail, it makes use of Malefic Momentum, it makes use of By Crack of Bone. We don't make use of either of these. The reason why I'm going to go piece by piece why I think this is super suboptimal. One, I've already mentioned why Assail is suboptimal. You are not getting Psykinetics Aura. I say this not as a joke, being completely serious. I think all of this, like this whole section here, is outweighed by this in regular play at high skill levels. I know that might be difficult to convince some people of, but I think it's just the reality. Assail, you know, can be good if you're a casual player for the reasons I mentioned earlier, but its use case is far outweighed by these with this build, because this doesn't really give you anything. You're already killing things incredibly efficiently. If you switch to Recon Lasgun, you have plenty of ammo efficiency, in my opinion, and both of these have use cases and will help you in situations that your regular build will not. This does not. I understand like kind of the idea with this build is that you're like swapping between using your stale, making use of Malefic Momentum, and then By Crack of Bone. I think this is just kind of a meme. I think this is like way more overhead than is necessary. It makes you less effective overall, and I don't think it's diverse enough to like make the build more interesting, I guess, or more fun for me personally. I think just moving fast and shooting is more enjoyable. If you really like this, you certainly can do it. It's not super unoptimal. It does cost a lot of talent points, and you miss out on a lot of things to do this. I think By Crack of Bone particularly works against you because you want to be high peril a majority of the time, and reducing your peril by using melee when you are not in Scryer's Gaze is a bad thing, and when you are in Scryer's Gaze doesn't really, you know, lead to further ease of use. Yeah, the further peril generation means you'll stay in Scryer's Gaze a little bit longer, but if you're just like moving optimally, it's not necessary. Like, you'll hit max stacks a lot of the time, depending on what kind of content you're in. So I think if anything, like just getting rid of this point is actually better than having it, frankly. I know that seems silly, but I feel that way. Some major blunders here. For one, we have to use Warp Unbound with Assail. Technically, you don't have to, but he's including here, I'm assuming, for ease of use and so that you don't explode more often. I wouldn't do that, personally, but you could do that. I think it's not worth a node. He doesn't take Surety of Arms. I've touched on why I think this is good. I can see why, for his type of build, you wouldn't want to take it because of the reload peril generation, but I think, again, this is just working against what makes Gun Psyker good in the first place. Not taking Warp Rider is a huge mistake, IMO. This is just free damage for 2 nodes and also getting a 10% health bonus. And because he has the Curio, he clearly values health. So I don't know why, like, doing this is preferable to getting these and also these. I don't think it's better in any way, shape, or form. And I think if you are a casual player, playing with this with Recon Lasgun will serve you better. That is pretty much everything I have to say. I know that's a lot, 32 minutes. Sorry about 34 minutes. Sorry about that. But I hope this is helpful to you and gives you some actual information. I'm sure there's about a million things that I'm going to go back and go, man, I sure wish I had talked about that. I honestly think I could have probably talked about this for another 40 minutes, but I don't think anyone would have watched it. But I think the main draws that you should take from this is don't overthink it. Use smite when you need to as a panic button only. You know, the whole point of this build is to be aggressive. Be aggressive. If you're going to play this build, run up, you know, try to make use of empathic evasion as much as you can. If you are not good enough to do so and you feel as though that's going to force you to miss position in a way that you are not capable of getting out of, maybe don't play this build. Try different alterations of it. You can play with your team and also be effective, but I feel like if you're going to do that, you might as well play veteran because your damage differential isn't that massive at like normal levels of play, and veteran's going to offer a ton of utility. You're going to give tons of support to your team. It just doesn't really make sense. Yeah, I just don't know why you would do it, frankly. If you really just like Psyker class fantasy and you want to use a gun, that's fair. But at that point, this video isn't really for you. You don't particularly care about optimal play, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not a good idea necessarily. I'm going to play a little bit of footage. It's going to be a duo carnival. I will be blunt with you. It is not good footage. I intentionally chose bad footage instead of any of the number of games in here where I'm absolutely dominating numbers, because I think that it's a poor representation of the build to do so. Most players will not make effective use of the build and will not play perfectly. I did that specific run with a very unoptimal duo partner, Chorus Zealot. Reason why that's unoptimal. Chorus Zealot delays things longer rather than actually kills them, and delaying things costs you more resources and time. Most Chorus Zealot, including the one that I played with, are going to use Flamer, which is not ammo intensive necessarily if used properly, but isn't ammo inefficient. Or isn't ammo efficient, excuse me, is what I mean to say. So it does use up a decent amount of ammo. I also played it, I'll be blunt with you, after like 3 hours of sleep and well, quite high. So it's not my best game. I really want to make that clear. It's a little embarrassing, but I am choosing to use it so that you understand that even with somewhat skilled play, this build can be ineffective in high difficulty environments. And without pre-planning for it, it will lead to resource issues. Even if you have really good map knowledge, you'll notice in the footage, I'm constantly searching and we're constantly searching for resources as we're traveling. And there's a period where we run out of them completely. There's a period where we have an abundance of them. Some of your runs will go really smoothly, but to frame it as though like every run you will have an abundance of ammo is disingenuous. I would say it's a 50-50 depending on what the map wants to give you and what modifiers, etc., etc. So I'm going to play that footage. Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, let me know. I don't know what to do for my next video. I have a lot of ideas. I was thinking of either doing a generalist veteran build, which is my second favorite build. I have some for fun Ogren builds and a Ogren generalist build. I am not very good with trauma staff, but I have a very good idea of trauma staff meta. So I don't know. Let me know. Thanks for watching and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Demolition charge!
I'm not dead!
Not exactly subtle, but you're through. Now to find those ciphers.
They'll be deeper in if I know my heritage. Not that I know them in that sense, understand?
Oh, sure, that's what my contact
it out! A threat no more! You kill it! It shall be so! Faster! Kill it from above!
The fox-burst is gone! These are former simpletons!
I used to dream of living here. Thanks again for us aborted the
Flavor isn't our problem now! Now gonna capture opportunity! Should be uninterested! You're underway! Not so clever now, eh, Trapper? Hot back and feel its thoughts!
By thy seeming friendship.
I think it's time to kill everyone! That's right! No more
Let thy
angry
presence be known!
Development seems to have
Demon host, a moment of repose. Our bet is a finish them with prayer.
To what purpose? Look out! Hound! wicked rats. Empty minds, too. Judgment and mortality. Weapon, smaller.
The bomber is slain! Well, heretics! I am righteous! Labor is slain! A trial of faith!
Ammunition. Just what I needed. Sniper! Killed it! Get back! Pox bastard! If you're on your own, you're on your own. This way! Moving to flush them out!
Begone, mutant! The Jabba flees our land!
Should be hiding buttons! That's an end to the mutie's torment! I'd be angry too if I look like that!
The mutant is dead!
The bomber is gone! You're all going to die! Listen back! I see it!
Lend me that knife! Through there!
That's it! No more angry thoughts!
The picture leaks carnage!
No more primitive joy! That's a bit!
The mutant is slain!
Snipers down! The bomber is no longer an issue! These are Thomas Buttons! Follow me!
Bomber is slain!
Surprise your best stalker. Let's hope there's no ambush waiting.
Rusty! Pushback! I am righteous!
Killing it was kindness, really! A war flows through me!
Not before time. Master!